Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Smash JT. For those of you who are not subscribed to the channel and you're just watching this because you want to find out about the Sega Genesis Classic, I will get to that, but the reason why I want to start it off like this is some of you may not know me, and I've made a lot of video game videos. I used to work in the video game industry, and it is my passion to not just play video games, but also talk about them. And when the PlayStation Classic got announced, I made a video talking about why I felt like that was going to fail. Not just fail, but fail hard, and it did. I actually bought it day one to test it out myself, ended up smashing it with the mallet on the wall behind me, made a video about that, put a lot of work into that, nobody watched it. After I actually bought this and smashed it, I bought another one because they went on clearance, and it's not a terrible system for $40, but it's a terrible system for $100, which is the problem with the PlayStation Classic. The actual mix of games from different regions, missing an AC adapter. I know people have those laying around the house, but for $100 you need a good buying proposition to the customer, and Sony did none of that. It was just a cash grab for the holidays. Plain and simple, it's clear as day that's what it was. The reason why I bring all of that up though is because for the people who thought I was hating on that just to get clicks, here's proof that I wasn't. The Sega Genesis Classic Mini, or whatever they're gonna call it when it finally comes out, this thing looks spectacular. It is going to sell like hotcakes. Everybody is going to line up for one of these. But why? Well, there's a number of reasons. The first thing people are going to ask is, why the hell would I buy this thing when I can just buy the Sega Genesis Classics collection on any of the major platforms, and this includes over 50 classic Genesis games. What the hell would be the point of buying a Classic Mini that does basically the same thing with less games? Well, hear me out on this, because once you hear what this thing brings to the end user, you're gonna want one of these yourself. Sega announced on stage at Sega FES 2019, an annual event in Tokyo, that they will be releasing a Sega Genesis Mini Classic on September 19th of 2019. This is following up what they talked about in 2018 and how they were making a Mini Classic back then, and it was supposed to be AtGames developed technology, but Sega backed away from them after they released a bunch of consoles that fell flat when they hit the public. Poor emulation and sound, controls, everything about these were just cheap. They were not manufactured with the love and care that you could tell went into the NES and Super Nintendo Classic. Sega looked over at what Sony just did with their PlayStation Classic and said, we probably should put a little bit more work into this, because if you do it wrong, it will end up costing you money. You can't just throw these together and hope to make money off of them. Thankfully, the gaming community has smartened up enough to the point to not throw money at crap and just hope it works well. We are now holding these game manufacturers accountable for making higher quality products, and that's exactly what the Sega Genesis Mini is going to bring to the end user. First off, just the style of this thing is beautiful, and Sega did announce a slew of games so far, with Altered Beast, Castlevania Bloodlines, by the way, my favorite Castlevania game of all time, so if you haven't played that, this would be a good excuse to check it out. Comix Zone, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Ecco the Dolphin, which I still haven't figured out how to play that game, but man, it's beautiful. Gunstar Heroes, Shining Force, a fantastic turn-based RPG, Sonic the Hedgehog, Space Harrier II, and ToeJam and Earl, with more games getting announced as time goes on, up to 40 titles or more. So not even as many as coming in this package, but still, the quality of games coming in a beautiful console, all self-sustained with an HDMI out and two classic Genesis controllers with the 3-button pads. Those things are hard to find in working condition, and not many people want to set up their original Genesis to play these games and put the carts in anymore, except for those enthusiasts of retro. This will be the de facto way to play those Genesis games and get the feeling that you used to have when you threw the carts in back in the day, but on a modern TV set now, which hopefully Sega does a good job with the emulation, the scan lines, and how it's going to actually output. That's the biggest factor remaining to be seen, so I don't want to just say this is definitely going to be perfect. Assuming Sega puts the time into this that it sounds like they're going to, it is going to be a hit. In a separate presentation at Sega FES 2019, Sega said that M2, the developer behind Sega Ages, is creating the software for the device, which is a huge relief. Extremely well-made, high-quality ports of these retro Genesis games. And while they didn't give information about the US release on this aspect, they did say the Japanese release will include different versions of the game. So like Castlevania Bloodlines in Japan will include different variations of the game based off the region. So we can hope that happens worldwide with the other units they sell, but that is exciting in its own right to get different versions of these games that many of us have never seen before. Different music and sound effects and maybe different graphical styles as well. It's a really nice touch that they're adding on to the Japanese version that goes to show that they care about the quality, that they want to make this the perfect classic mini console. And you remember that menu music from the PlayStation Classic? It sounded like this. As opposed to what Sega is doing, hiring Yuzo Koshiro, the guy who composed the Streets of Rage music, to do the menu music. What does that say about what Sega is trying to do with this? One of the greatest musicians in gaming history is making the menu music for this thing. Sega is going all out on this. I will say a frustrating part, the Japanese version of the Mega Drive Classic or Genesis Classic is getting those 6-button controllers, which are perfect for fighting games. The US is getting the regular 3-button controllers. That's kind of annoying because I would have preferred to at least have the option to buy the 6-button or the 3-button. But hey, based off of what Sega's been doing with this thing, I'm not going to complain because it seems like it's everything I ever wanted out of a Genesis Mini to begin with. Japan will get 2 variations, one with 1 controller for 6,980 yen, which is about $60 US, and 2 controllers for 8,980 yen, which is about $80 US. The US version will cost a flat $80, which is high, but it's not insane. And when you consider what you're getting with this, first off, it comes with a power supply adapter. Do you hear that, Sony? It comes with everything you need to plug and play. With the developer Sega behind this, making the emulation as perfect as possible, some of the greatest Sega Genesis games ever coming onto the console, all in one, plugging through an HDMI port with 2 controllers, $80. It's gonna be worth it. It's got to be. Assuming that they knock it out of the park with the emulation and allowing different options with the screen filter, I don't see how anybody could go wrong with this thing. Now, if you don't need it, obviously you're not gonna buy it because you can just get the Sega Genesis Classics collection, but the reason this thing is going to sell like hotcakes is the convenience of being able to play high quality ROMs of these retro Genesis games in the original Genesis controller made by the official company, having it all in one. Yes, you can make these all on a RetroPie, but it's not going to have the emulation perfected like the company that did the Sega Ages. So there's a lot to look forward to in this. I am extremely excited about it. If you can't tell, it's definitely a day one purchase for me, and this is coming from a guy who definitely does not need another mini console. But hey, I love video games, I love retro video games, I love official company products that are made to perfection, which is exactly what I predict this Sega Genesis Classic Mini to be. So there is all the information that we have right now for it. Like I said, cannot wait for this thing. September 19th, 6 days before my birthday. It was meant to be. Anyways, I'm gonna leave it right there, guys, but let me know what you think about the Sega Genesis Classic Mini. Are you gonna buy this thing day one? You gonna wait on it? Because if you wait on this, I got a feeling you're not gonna get one of these. At least not for a long while. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, you stay smashing. And it was supposed to be AtGames, the people that made this Atari flash. Awesome.